At 10:39 here on Live Impact News, I'm Jane Monreal. We want to go out back live to Raleigh, where Governor Josh Stein is taking some questions from local media. Let's listen in.
It was introduced by Republicans and Democrats and Republicans together that are all about increasing supply. It may be what they call accessory dwelling units or granny flats. It could be about removing parking restrictions, which serve to limit the number of units. It could be about getting rid of the requirements of a certain lot size in a new subdivision. There are many good ideas, and what I hope the legislature does is they come together, talk with all the interested parties, and come up with as many proposals as we can that will increase supply.
Governor, how does this play into the 2030
Oh, 2030. Well, when I said we need housing of all kinds, that includes special needs housing. I was just in Charlotte yesterday visiting Haven House, which is a really wonderful facility helping people overcome their drug addiction. What they said is the number one constraint, it is not detox facility, it's not short-term treatment facility, it's not long-term recovery facility, it's affordable supportive housing on the back end. And so what we want is for all North Carolinians to succeed, and in order for them to do so, they need to be able to afford a good place to live.
Governor, any thoughts about bills I think in the House now, they talk about increasing the minimum wage. Any thoughts on that?
I strongly support increasing the minimum wage. North Carolina has not raised its minimum wage since 2009. It's $7.25. It's incredibly much too low. We need to dramatically increase the minimum wage. Yeah, I was just in Western North Carolina last week, up in the little town of Alexander, and I met Ms. Deborah. Her house was totally destroyed by the storm, water damage. She's 2 weeks away from moving into a brand new 3-bedroom, 2-bath home that was in her family for generations. And so it's so important for her to be able to stay connected to her home place. And we're working as hard as we can to build as many houses as quickly as we can to help those folks. North Carolina stood up our housing program faster than any state impacted by Helene, faster than any state after a major hurricane in more than a decade.
What are some of the tangible milestones or benchmarks you want to hit, and when can people start seeing more housing and more of these opportunities?
Well, more housing is happening in real time, but we want to have even more. And Yannick, I don't know if you have ways to talk about the benchmarks.
Excuse me. There's a report that the North Carolina Chamber of Commerce, the home builders, and the North Carolina Realtors commissioned a couple years ago that established the goal of more than 750,000 additional homes that the state needs to meet its housing needs through 2029. And so those are the goals that we're setting, that we're aiming towards, and we're going to be setting up dashboards and metrics so you can follow our progress along the way. And it's not just our progress, right? It's going to be the progress of all of us here working together collectively.
This is a pretty big state. How do we decide where those funds go and make sure that we're going kind of even across the state?
Again, we recognize that every community, every town has different needs. At the same time, we expect universal problems and universal solutions, and we need to recognize, as I said in my remarks, Jones County may need a few hundred units, and that might sound like nothing here in Wake County where we need 100,000 units. We also might need different types of housing in these different communities, and we're going to find solutions that address all those kind of needs.
And many of these solutions are going to be locally driven. Each community knows best what they need, but what we want to do is remove red tape, free up the market so that they can produce whatever housing the market needs.
A little out of left field, but you've worked with, I've seen you go to Edenton, meet different colleagues in the Council of State. What's it been like working with State Treasurer Brad Reiner for the past year and a half? And I know there's just a lot of creative, innovative partnerships y'all are working on. Can you just talk about what that's been like?
Yeah, Brad is an exceptionally thoughtful guy. It's rare that somebody comes into a new office and says, I want you to pass a law taking away some of my authority and diffusing it among a bigger group of people. But when it comes to investment, to have one person making the investment decision of a $100 billion pension fund, that's not wise. And Brad recognized that, and that was his first initiative. I supported him in that, and I think he's got the pension fund headed in the right direction.
And on the note of stripping power away, legislators like the State Board of Education under like 14 different districts. I'm wagering you don't support that. I'm just curious what you make of those different power-taking efforts that we're seeing in the last month here.
Basically, the legislature should focus on its core job, which is passing a law. The most important law is our state budget. They're making progress on that. I commend them for that. I encourage them to remain focused on that. They do not need to spend time figuring out what authority they can try to take from the executive branch.
One of the biggest barriers on this is cost for supplies.
That's right.
How do you combat that challenge with this huge initiative that you have? Answered up there, right?
Okay, and then you can chime in on this too. It was cost. I got you. One of the big challenges for building housing is cost. We're seeing increase in all kinds of input costs, lumber, materials, cement. The tariffs are really increasing costs on everything, and those tariffs roll into the cost that people ultimately have to pay when it comes to building a new home. So obviously we can't control the tariff policy of Washington. Congress needs to reassert itself. The Constitution gives them authority over tariffs, not the president. They need to reassert their own authority. But we are going to be focused on what we can control and try to drive down costs as much as we can. The more qualified labor there is, the less you have to pay a premium to get people on the job. So we want to increase the workforce. The more land that's developable, then the lower the cost of each unit of piece of land. That lowers the cost for the ultimate purchaser. So what we want to do is focus on what we can control to drive costs down. The main thing we want to do is increase housing supply.